In this video, we're going to be testing out official SteamOS on one of the most powerful handhelds that we've been able to test over on the channel here. What we've got is the AOKZOE A1X, and what makes this special is the APU, screen, and battery. With this unit, we get the AMD Ryzen HX370. So with this, we get that 16 compute unit iGPU based on RDNA 3.5. It's got an 8-inch 120Hz VRR display, basically the same thing that we've seen in the MSI Claw 8 AI and the Legion Go S. And they also added a larger battery here, coming in at around 72 watt hours. I've been wanting to run official SteamOS on these HX370 powered devices, be it a handheld or a mini PC, but unfortunately, it would always get stuck when it was booting. But luckily, Valve has fixed this with their beta 3.79. Well, I say fix with quotations because I've still got two devices that this will not boot up on. And when it comes down to it, this HX370 is the closest thing that we have to the Z2 Extreme, and we know we will see a bunch of handhelds coming down the road. It's not exactly the same, but again, this is kind of the closest that we have at the time of making this video. So it can give us kind of a good idea of what kind of performance we can expect out of the Z2 Extreme once it releases, and I suspect we will see better performance at lower TDPs because that Z2 Extreme has 8 cores, 16 threads, as opposed to the HX370's 12 cores and 24 threads. Plus, we don't have an XDNA NPU over on that Z2 Extreme. So there's a chance at lower wattages, we will see higher clocks in the CPU and GPU, and in turn, give us a little better performance over there at those lower TDPs on the Z2 Extreme. Having SteamOS installed on the A1X still isn't perfect because there's a few things that I just can't control without third-party plugins, like RGB control. I'm using HueSync, and I've just installed a couple extra plugins here to allow me to control the TDP and correct controller inputs. So there were a few buttons that I couldn't get working, but when it comes to TDP control, I'm using simple DECI TDP, and we can go anywhere from 4 watts up to 40 with this unit. We've also got GPU control, so if we wanted to lock it down, we could. But in this video, I wanted to show you a little bit of performance on this handheld all by itself, and then I want to move into some side-by-side comparisons, kind of facing this off against the Steam Deck OLED and the Legion Go S with the Z1 Extreme. And for those tests, I'm going to be at a 15 watt TDP because that HX370 is actually a really efficient chip. I wanted to see how it stacked up against those two. But first things first, let's get into a little bit of gameplay all by itself. I've got Spider-Man 2 running at 800p medium with FSR frame gen on. We're also only at an 18 watt TDP. With that 70 watt hour battery, we can still get some really good runtime out of this at 18 watts. And if I wanted to run this at 60 with these same settings, I'd have to take this up to around 37 watts, and in turn, I'm just not going to get good battery life. So frame gen is kind of a must with this game on a handheld if you want to run at or over 60. Next one we have here is Doom the Dark Ages, 800p low with XeSS set to balanced. I personally like using XeSS. And with this running, we're not using frame gen because we've still got some issues with frame generation on certain devices with this game. I really hope that's fixed soon because with frame gen enabled, we could almost double our frame rate here. And I did take this up to a 20 watt TDP, but in my opinion, it's really playable. And another thing to keep in mind is we've got that variable refresh rate display, so we don't have to worry about tearing. I've actually got it enabled right now. We'll come back to some other games at a higher TDP later on in the video, but now I want to move over to some side-by-side comparisons between the Steam Deck OLED on the far left, the Legion Go S with the Z1 Extreme APU in the middle, and the A1X with that HX370 on the far right-hand side. Since the Steam Deck OLED can only do up to a 15 watt TDP, that's exactly what we're at here on the other two devices. And of course, we can get more out of that Legion Go S with the Z1 Extreme at a higher TDP. We can do the same on this HX370 powered device. But at the end of this benchmark at 720p low 15 watt TDP, the Steam Deck OLED managed an average of 58, which is really good actually. I mean, I was kind of surprised that it would do up to 58 with this game. Legion Go S with the Z1 Extreme at 63, and the AOKZOE A1X with the HX370, we had an average of 70 FPS. I also wanted to test out Black Myth Wukong, and with all of these tests, we're not going to be using frame generation. On each one of these devices, we can see a little better performance, especially with this game using frame gen. But at 720p low settings with FSR set to 60%, again 15-watt TDP across the board, Steam Deck OLED 44, Legion Go S with the Z1 Extreme up to 49, and the HX370 here 59 FPS. Checking out Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, and this game is Steam Deck verified, but I think they're kind of pushing it there because once you enable it on the Steam Deck, very low settings, ultra performance FSR, so we're using those same settings, and to tell you the truth, I just don't have a good time on the Steam Deck with this game. Because with the built-in benchmark at 720p, very low, that Steam Deck OLED manages 41, but I just don't see 41 while I'm really playing the game. The Legion Go S with the Z1 Extreme, 43, so not much better over there. And even when it comes to that HX370, it's not doing much at that 15-watt TDP. We really need to push the wattage up on the Z1 Extreme and the HX370 to get good performance out of this one. I also wanted to test out my favorite arcade racer, Forza Horizon 5, and I do play this on the Steam Deck OLED. It's actually a pretty decent experience just locking it down at 60 FPS with those low settings. But at the end of this benchmark, 720p, low, 15-watt TDP, Steam Deck OLED managed 65, Legion Go S with the Z1 Extreme up to 68, and you can see that that HX370 came way ahead with an average of 81. This is one of those games where it really makes a huge difference. And the final one we have here is Cyberpunk 2077, and I'll admit while playing this on the Steam Deck I do unlock the frame rate, but you're kind of meant to run this at 30 FPS. Either way, running this benchmark here, we did have to unlock it. So we're at 720p, Steam Deck preset, which does take FSR to balance, 15-watt TDP, Steam Deck OLED coming in with a 47 FPS average, Legion Go S with the Z1 Extreme up to 56, and this HX370 up to 62. And again, keep in mind, with that Z1 Extreme and the HX370, we can take the wattage way up on these chips and get much better performance out of all of the games that we tested. With the Steam Deck, unfortunately, we're kind of locked there at 15 watts. Now, there is a little bit of overclocking we can do from the BIOS or using a third-party mod, but we're not going to see these kind of frame rates out of that custom APU in the OLED. Just wanted to show off a few more games running here on this HX370 with SteamOS. Elden Ring 800p medium 20-watt TDP. And I'm going to call it optimizations for the game because I mean we're right there at like 57 to 58 FPS. Even taking this up to a 25-watt TDP doesn't net us much more. I've just been having this issue on these iGPUs with this game, especially in SteamOS. Over in Windows, it does seem to kind of sync up and let us run this at 60, 25 watts with something like this. $800p medium 25-watt TDP. So this is one that I've been running into a lot of issues with on these iGPUs in SteamOS. And it comes down to, I believe, shader cache. We've just got a lot of stuttering going on. And it just kind of feels like something is loading in. Just gives us that little hiccup, little stutter there. And with this, with a ton of explosions on screen, a bunch of different particle effects, it can take a while to kind of clear up. And finally, Cyberpunk 2077, and I know we ran the benchmark here against the Steam Deck and the Legion Go S with the Z1 Extreme, but now we can actually go up to a 20-watt TDP, 1200p Steam Deck preset with frame gen enabled and get over 70 FPS on average with this game. Just sitting at a 20-watt TDP, we've got a 72 watt-hour battery in the A1X, and you know, we're going to see more devices coming with those 80 to 99 watt-hour batteries in the coming months. So definitely keep an eye out. But having a bigger battery like this does allow us to kind of bring that wattage up and not have to worry about only getting an hour runtime out of it. So yeah, I'm really excited about SteamOS on devices like this, and especially the upcoming AMD Ryzen Z2 Extreme handhelds. Lenovo has announced their Legion Go 2. Hopefully we're getting the new Ally with the Z2 Go, and even MSI is jumping over to AMD from Intel with their newer Claw handhelds that should be released later this year. But it's looking really promising, and as soon as I can get my hands on one, I'd love to kind of compare that to the HX370. Again, we've got more cores here. We've also got that XDNA NPU, which could be using some power here. I think at the same wattages that we saw, we'll get a few more frames out of it with only 8 cores and 16 threads. But I had a bunch of people asking about running real SteamOS on Strix Point, and I was finally able to do it here. I'm going to keep an eye out for more updates from Valve, but that's going to wrap it up for this one. And if you're interested in learning a little more about this device or any of the other devices, I'll leave links in the description. But that's it for this one. And like always, thanks for watching.